Welcome to V2V podcast, Vision to Value. Hi, I'm Daiji Kimura. I'm the head of growth at Invedo, a custom software agency, and the founder of daijikimura.com, where we help to execute innovative projects that really deliver, whether that's boosting ROI, increasing sales, or driving meaningful change. If you're managing digital projects or leading a tech business, you're in the right place. I know how overwhelming it can be to stay on top of trends, manage constant change, and cut through the noise. That's why this podcast is all about keeping complex topics simple, hands-on, and grounded. As a former athlete, I understand that achieving goals takes practice, focus, and the right guidance. Think of this podcast as your training ground for success in innovation. And now, let's dive in. Hi there, and welcome to the episode number 2 of the V2V podcast. First off, thanks for sticking with me after the first episode. I know the sound quality wasn't great. I got a little bit too excited and had my microphone too close, so you probably heard some buzzing and plosives, so my bad. I've learned my lesson and I hope to improve my recording and sound editing skills over time. I'll do my best. Today we're talking about something every innovation leader has struggled with at some point: budgeting for software projects. And here's the thing. No matter how much experience you have, you always need to rely on others for project estimates. Maybe it's your internal tech team, or maybe you're working with a software development agency. Either way, it's tough to figure out if those estimates are accurate and even realistic. And I've seen some wild ones in my career, some ridiculously high or others way too low, but most often ridiculously high. This episode isn't about nailing a perfect estimate. Spoiler alert, there are no perfect estimates. It's about building a resilient approach so you can confidently navigate budgets and secure your project. Okay, so I'm not gonna drag this out. Let's get into it. Okay, so in the main part, we are going to talk about the challenge of budgeting and how to deal with them. So let me ask you, have you ever gotten a project estimate that just felt off? Maybe it was way too expensive, but you didn't really question it because you thought, well, I'm not technical enough to challenge this, or you figured that the experts must know better than you. Or perhaps you told yourself, well, software is complicated, so it's probably supposed to cost this much. And I totally get it, and I've been there too. It's hard to push back when you're not a developer, and especially when you're outnumbered. It can make you second guess yourself. But let me tell you, you should trust your gut. I once worked with a client who got a quote for about $500,000 and 1.5 years to build their app. And they thought it seemed a little bit too high, but they didn't know how to challenge it. And they reached out to me. And when I reviewed it, I found the proposal was packed with unnecessary features and complexities. So we stripped it down with the client to the core values and must-have features. Then by replacing the custom build with off-the-shelf tools, we got the MVP done for $75,000 in just 3 months. A numbers of times I saw that a lot of estimates include fluff, things you don't actually need, and people love to be unproductive, especially when they get easy money, so watch out for this. By the way, let me tell you about really common pitfalls when working with software developers. If you have your in-house team, they really like to drag things out. They're not always incentivized to move quickly, so they deliberately slow down their productivity to decrease your expectation as a leader over time. Whereas agencies tend to stretch timelines to keep billing you, whether it's with fixed price contracts, with exaggerated buffers, or vague time and material arrangements. And both of these fall into a phenomenon called Parkinson's law. So work expands to fill the time available. If the developers have 6 months to finish a project, they'll take exactly 6 months to deliver, even if the work could have been done in 3. So how do you avoid these traps? Well, if you take credit for well-deployed innovation, you should also take a real ownership and put in the hard work. The more work you do upfront, the more control you'll have over the project. So I wrote down a hands-on, no-nonsense approach to budgeting a software project like a true leader in 6 points. Number 1, start with ruthless clarity. What I mean by that is, if the scope isn't clear, just stop doing it. Don't budget based on dreams or half-baked ideas. Pin the stakeholders down and demand the precise answers. What exactly do we need to deliver? Or what are we not delivering? Because ambiguity now is a money pit later. The second one is visualize your projects. Don't just describe. And this is very important. Once you write out user stories, draw mock-ups and visualize your ideas, because business leaders and tech teams speak completely different languages. Visuals bridge the gap. A good wireframe or mock-up helps your team to see the concept. Relying only on words can lead to misunderstandings because the bandwidth is so limited and complex ideas can get lost. So I really recommend doing visuals. Number 3, budget for the worst, work for the best. So I recommend to assume that things will break and timelines will slip and someone will underestimate effort. So while negotiating and challenging your developers to minimize their estimates, on the flip side, you have to also build a substantial contingency fund on your end for your own safety. And in the ideal scenario, if it's not used, then it's great. You look like a hero. But if it is, you just planned like a boss, right? Number 4 is don't be stingy on key talents rates. So hire the best talent you can afford for core roles, especially in the times of technological facilities such as low code, no code, AI, and tools for supporting the build. You'll be so much better off by having fewer but high quality specialists than a big team of mediocre developers. A bunch of incompetent people coupled with complex communication will sink your project faster than anything else. So invest upfront in the right people and avoid headaches later. Number 5 is kill the fluff. Start with solid MVP. Try to identify the features or tasks that don't scream must have and cut them without hesitation. Every dollar wasted on nice to haves is a dollar you can't use to fix critical problems or scale success. You have to always ask yourself, what happens if we don't do this? And if the answer is nothing catastrophic, don't do that. And number 6 is track progress regularly and act accordingly. Remember to use tools to monitor progress regularly. If something is creeping, confront it and resolve it immediately. You don't have to wait for a review meeting. Try to intervene early. As a leader, you set the tone and take the ownership, period. I believe that working with agencies, freelancers, or your internal developers is about taking charge and setting the tone from day one. Give your developers a tight list of deliverables, define priorities, and measurable success metrics. Then remember also to shop smart. So don't get quote from just one entity. Try to get quotes from at least 3 entities and just make them compete. And last but not least, remember that the developers who actually care about your project will grill you during discussions. What I mean by that is that they will ask tough but smart questions that force you to clarify your vision. So every time, if they're just nodding along without challenging anything, you can expect that they're just chasing the check. So watch out for this. Okay, so that's everything for the main part of this episode. Let's move on to outro. The problem with Project Estimate is something that I've been fighting for years and years in my career. So I'm very happy to finally record the episode about it. I hope it serves you well. And if you're struggling with project budgeting and basically you don't know where to start, I want you to know that I can help. I offer a number of services such as scoping things out, creating clear requirements, writing BRDs, designing wireframes, issuing RFPs, and so on. And by the way, if you agree or disagree with anything I said in this episode, please let me know. You can find me on LinkedIn or visit daijikimura.com. And that's all for today. I'll catch you next week. Stay sharp. Bye.